House will please come to order. Those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber at this time. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer today by Pastor Mark Ice, the guest of the gentleman from the 16th, Doug Hornbuckle.
Let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before you today, we come seeking your presence. We invite you into this house, into the legislature, into the Senate, into the House of Delegates, and with our governor to be with each and every elected official. We pray, Lord, that you would help us to have the wisdom of Solomon, Lord, to make the decisions that are so difficult, not black and white. But, Lord, they will have an effect and an outcome on so many people. So, God, we just pray that you be with each and every person here. God, we pray for the people of our state who are so special and wonderful, in this state that we love dearly, that you would watch over us. And you've blessed us in so many ways, and we ask you to continue to watch over us. Right now, God, we just thank you for your love and your blessing, that you sent your Son, Jesus Christ, that you loved us that much to die on the cross for us. We just ask that your presence would speak to our hearts, permeate our souls, and guide us, Lord. And we ask it in your special and your wonderful heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. Members and guests, please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance today by the gentleman from the 16th, Doug Hornbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would my colleagues and our guests join me in honoring the best country on the planet? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Tuesday, February 19th, 2019.
Gentleman 17th, Doug Lovejoy.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
The gentleman from the 17th moves that asks unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with, that it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Be so ordered. Introduction to guests. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery for me today, I have my friends Wendy Presscorn, Becky Sands, and Holly Holbert, who drove down here to help me deal with some tragedies at home, and I appreciate that and love you. If you'd stand and the House make you welcome.
The gentleman 12th, Doug Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, this week, the legislature have been asked to recognize some of the very important student leaders from out the state. Over the last 25 months, the Secretary of State's office has been working closely with our 55 county clerks to make sure that every eligible West Virginia resident is registered to vote. Working with political party leaders and civic groups like Emprise, West Virginia, and more than 107,000 new registered voters have registered in the last 2 years. Notably, Mr. Speaker, more than 33,000 of these newly registered voters are high school students. This is why I'd like to honor the students today that are responsible for leading voter registration drives in their home schools, who achieved at least 85% registry of eligible students. To designate or earn them the Jennings-Randolph Award for their achievement. These students have been designated Honorary Secretary of State. These students are in the gallery to our rear with Secretary of State Mac Warner. I'd like to introduce them. From Ravensville High School in Jackson County, Destiny Thomas with County Clerk Cheryl Bright. From Hannah High School in Mason County, Summer Hughes. From Roane County High School, Grayson Watson and Dylan Hamrick with County Clerk Charlie White. And from St. Albans High School in Kanawha County, Rachel Snyder and Hope Wyatt. Will they please stand? And Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen, will the House please give them a warm welcome.
The gentleman, the 25th, Doug Painter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I'd like to welcome my friends from Wyoming, Mercer, and McDowell, the 25th District, teachers and service employees to the Capitol, and if you don't care, let's give them a big house welcome.
The gentleman from the 35th, Doggett Bird.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery today, I have one of my good friends, Kelly Lassiter, who's a music teacher at Point Harmony Elementary. Would you please stand and the housemaker feel welcome?
The gentleman from the 37th, Doggett Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are joined today by a couple of very special teachers over in the South Gallery. First, my brother, David Pushkin, who's a teacher at Sherman Elementary. And thank you. And he is joined by the greatest special education teacher in the state of West Virginia, Ms. Susan Johnson, also from Sherman, from Boone County. Roll Tide.
The gentleman from the 20th, Doggett Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Dean from the 21st District, there are some educators from Mingo County today. I'd like for you to stand up as I call your name. They're situated in the West Gallery. There's Brandon Wolford, Lorraine Davis, Wendy Barker, Patty Rife, Mitzi Cross, Stacy Gilliam, Lynn Baker, Lauren Evans, Heather Johnson, Shauna Belcher, Kelly Curry, and Johnny Nick Hager. The services they provide their district and their county are invaluable. I appreciate you, and thanks for coming down today. If the House will make them welcome.
The gentleman at 60th, Doggett Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, we have Kathy Hess Krause, who is the Vice President of West Virginia Home Educators, along with a couple of home-educated students. House, please make her welcome.
The gentleman at 26, Doggett Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if they made it into the galleries or not, but there's some friends of mine, teachers from McDowell County, and I also ran into some friends that are teachers from Wyoming County. If they're here, I'd like them to stand and be recognized. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman the 19th, Doggett Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Along with Delegate Thompson, I'd like to announce that we have Pages from Wayne County with us today. Pages, if you'll stand up when I announce your name. Those Pages are Autumn Block, Kerrigan Salmons, Lydia Stumbo, Julie Young. House, please make them welcome.
The gentleman the 19th, Doggett Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We also have in, I think, all three galleries, we have teachers and service personnel from Wayne County. I know we do in the West Gallery and the North Gallery. So if you're here from Wayne County, please stand and give them a round of applause.
The gentleman at 36, Doggett Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For all of us from Kanawha County, I'd like to introduce a couple of our pages today. One, we have David Brian Michael McKinney, and we also have his sister Katrina McKinney, both from McKinney's Progressive Homeschool. If the House will make them feel welcome.
The gentleman from 35th, Douglas Scaff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a longtime friend up in the gallery, Ms. Mello Lee, who's here supporting our educators today and our teachers everywhere, and all our Kanawha County teachers. On behalf of my colleagues in the 35th, please stand and be recognized.
Lady from the 51st, Doggett Walker.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce two special students who are also my goddaughters. Kalia Stark, who attends Mary C. Snow, and also Kajea Johnson, who attends Stonewall Jackson Middle School. And also, they will be looked after today by my son, Devin Walker. Can the House please give them a warm round of applause?
The lady from 36, Doggett East at Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have two very special teachers from Alum Creek Elementary, Tasha and Bobby Joe, please stand up. House, make them feel welcome. Thank you.
The gentleman of the 50th, Doug Angelucci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery, we have some teachers from Fairview Middle School in Marion County. I'd like for them to stand and be recognized. Wendy Dillon, Paige Tuttle, Gina Mara, Kate Dillon, and Sharon Tiano. I'm coming down to your house.
The gentleman of the 24th, Dr. Tomlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself, Delegate Rodriguez, Miller, and Maynard, I'd like to welcome our teachers, personnel from the Logan, Boone, and Wyoming County and Lincoln County. If they'd please stand, if any of them's in the house, and give them a warm welcome. Thank you for being here.
The lady from the 65th, Doug Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the northern panhandle to the eastern panhandle, from the very south all the way to the Huntington borders. I want every single last teacher to stand up. It's day 2. Thank you so much for holding your government accountable and being in the people's house. Stand up, brothers and sisters, and will the whole house make them feel welcome.
The gentleman of the 42nd, Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Lavender Bowe and myself, up in our West Gallery, we have a colleague from Eastern Greenbrier Middle School who battled the elements to get down here through 3 inches of snow and ice today. Comes to us by way of Fayette County, so I'd like to thank my colleagues from the 32nd District for sending him over to us in Greenbrier County. Please welcome Ty Brenovich.
The gentleman from the 11th, Doug Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, would like to recognize a student from Rome County High School, Grayson Watson. And also, we do have teachers in the gallery, and would the House please make them welcome?
Are there further introductions? If not, report to standing committee.
Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 2617 relating to the form for making offer of optional uninsured and underinsured coverage by insurers, and House Bill 2770 Fairness and Cost Sharing Calculation Act. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report will be received, but before we receive more reports to standing committees, Chair would recognize the Majority Leader for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is a change in the calendar. The following bills have been moved from special to House calendar. Committee substitute for House Bill 2532, House Bill 2872, House Bill 2932, Committee substitute for House Bill 2980, and Committee substitute for House Bill 2452.
Further report to standing committees.
Committee on Energy has had under consideration Committee substitute for Senate Bill 163 authorizing DEP promulgate legislative rules. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, that it be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Report to be received. Bill be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration House Bill 3132 relating to exempting providers that serve no more than 30 patients with office-based medication-assisted treatment. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be received.
Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Committee substitute for Senate Bill 175 authorizing DHHR promulgate legislative rules. Reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, that it be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Report to be received. Bill be referred to Committee on Judiciary.
Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2828 relating to promoting investment in a qualified opportunity zone. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass.
Report to be
be received.
Committee on Finances had in consideration House Bill 2830, establishing next generation 911 services in this state. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report to be received. Are there further reports to standing committees? Reports to select committees? Messages from the executive.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Hancock presents a communication from His Excellency the Governor advising that on February 19, 2019, he approved committee substitute for Senate Bill 240, Senate Bill 267, Senate Bill 324, Senate Bill 354, committee substitute for House Bill 2307 and House Bill 2462.
Message will be received. Are there further messages from the executive? Messages from the Senate.
The clerk of the Senate announced that the Senate has passed with amendment House Bill 2459, exercising authority to exempt individuals domiciled within the state from certain restrictions contained in federal law.
Message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration.
Lady from the 49th, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration. Are there objections? Chair hears no objections. Lady may proceed.
The Senate amendment revises the lifetime ban to a modified ban that would ban individuals convicted of a drug felony if that felony has an element of misuse of SNAP benefits, loss of life, or the causing of physical injury. It is believed that this modification will impact a small group of individuals. I move we concur with the Senate amendment.
The lady from the 49th moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments. Is there discussion? Is there discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. The House has concurred in the Senate amendments. The question before the House now is the passage of the bill as amended by the Senate. Is there discussion? If not, those in favor of the passage of the bill as amended by the Senate will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 96 ayes, 0 nays, 4 members absent not voting. Majority of those elected to the House having voted in the affirmative, Chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 2459.
For what purpose does the gentleman from 22nd, Douglas Maynard, seek recognition?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. My vote didn't register on the last vote.
The gentleman was present in his seat. How did the gentleman vote?
In the affirmative.
The gentleman's vote will be recorded as having voted in the affirmative. Again, are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there further messages from the Senate? Resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 76, Reverend Lonnie Ramsey Memorial Bridge.
Resolution be referred to the Committee on Technology and Infrastructure, then the Committee on Rules. Are there further resolutions? If not, petitions, motions, bills introduced, unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2486, using records of criminal conviction to disqualify a person from receiving a license for a profession or occupation.
The gentleman 27th, Douglas Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is part of the effort to try to remove barriers to employment. The bill we just passed that came back from the Senate was one of those. This is another one that's basically aimed at eliminating or reducing disqualifications that are contained in Chapter 30 of our code. As I mentioned yesterday, the bill attempts to remove the barriers by requiring that criminal convictions that may disqualify an applicant from applying for certification, that must bear a rational nexus, in other words, a logical connection to the occupation that requires licensure. The bill does not apply to lawyers, security services, or law enforcement officials. The bill provides that an applicant may not be disqualified from initial licensure, and I want to focus on that. It's an initial licensure, doesn't have anything to do with renewal. It cannot be disqualified for initial licensure because of a prior criminal conviction unless that conviction bears a rational nexus or logical connection to the occupation requiring licensure. Additionally, for those people who are disqualified for licensure because of a prior criminal conviction, that person will be afforded the opportunity to apply for licensure after the expiration of 5 years from the date of conviction or the date of release from the penalty that was imposed, whichever is later, if the individual has not been convicted of any other crime during that period of time. There is a proviso in the bill that states that convictions for violent or sexual offenses shall be subject to a longer period of disqualification, and that longer period of disqualification will be determined by each of the individual boards or licensing authorities. A person with a criminal record who has not previously applied for licensure or certification may file a petition with a board seeking a determination in advance of whether the individual's criminal record will disqualify the individual from obtaining a license. That provision is intended to help people who may be trying to decide whether to pursue additional schooling or training. That gives them the opportunity to know in advance whether their criminal conviction would disqualify them before they spend the money or take the time to go to school or obtain that additional training. As I indicated earlier, nothing in the bill alters the procedures for renewals. We're just talking about initial application. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are the members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result of this question. There are 94 ayes, 3 nays, 3 members absent not voting. Majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2486.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2975 relating to imposition of sexual acts on persons incarcerated.
The gentleman 27th, Delegate Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, it's a crime for a parole or a probation officer to engage in sexual intercourse or sexual contact with a person that officer is charged with supervising. What this bill does is simply add another additional group of individuals, those persons who work at an alternative sentence program, for instance, a day report center, to the groups that are prohibited from engaging in sexual intercourse or contact with a person they are charged with supervising. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Are there members who wish to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 97 ayes, 0 nays, 3 members absent not voting. Majority of those present having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2975.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 270, streamlining process for utilities access to DOH rights of way.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 356, requiring maps provide state and federal prosecutors information.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Senate Bill 358, exempting purchasing division purchases for equipment to maintain security at state facilities.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 387, relating generally to extradition.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Senate Bill 452, supplemental appropriation to Second Chance Driver's License Program.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2515, exempting the sale and installation of mobility enhancing equipment from the sales and use tax.
Are there amendments?
Let's see. Delegates S. Brown, Walker, and others move to amend the bill. This is HFA S. Brown, Walker et al. 2-20.
The chair has reviewed the amendment and is the ruling of the chair that the amendment is beyond the scope of the bill and is not in order. Are there further amendments? For what purpose does the lady from the 51st, Delegate Fleshauer, seek recognition?
Point of inquiry.
Lady may state her point.
Yes, this amendment is being added to the section on exemptions from the sales tax, and I would think this is just one more exemption. This is Q. They go through A through P. I can't imagine why this wouldn't be consistent with that code section.
The chair did review the amendment and found the language of the bill restricted to sections only 9I. Rather than adding a section in the bill, it simply amended an existing section, so did not add a new section.
Well, we don't have a rule that says we can only amend a certain section.
Chair's ruled if a lady wishes to appeal, now's the time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2532, allowing certain donations by persons renewing.
That's all. For 667.
House Bill 2667, Supplemental Appropriation, Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety, Division of Corrections.
Are there amendments?
No.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2854, exempting sales from the consumer sales and service tax and use tax by not-for-profit volunteer school support groups raising funds for schools.
Are there amendments? No. Not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2855, allowing rebate monies to be used for the operation and maintenance of accounting and transparency systems of the state.
Are there amendments? No. Not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2856, relating to the administration of the operating fund of the Securities Division of the Auditor's Office.
Are there amendments? Not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for
2886.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Committee substitute for House Bill 2886, establishing requirements for a Division Motor Vehicles Office or a Division of Motor Vehicles Now kiosk to be present in a county.
Are there amendments? No. Not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2907, requiring a form of a certified commitment order to the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Are there amendments? The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2924, permitting the West Virginia Tourism Office to decide to contract with Division of Highways to sell advertising space on the West Virginia 511 website.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2929, authorizing the West Virginia Tourism Office to enter into an agreement with Division of Highways to provide staff at the Welcome Centers.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2933, modifying the criminal penalties imposed on a parent, guardian, or custodian for child abuse resulting from energy.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Schott moves to amend the bill. This is HFA Schott 2-19, number 1.
Does the gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, wish to explain the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill modifies the penalties for abuse and neglect crimes. The amendment seeks to clean up the criminal penalties with respect to repeat offenders. Under the current law and under the bill as it was originally presented before the committee, only one abuse and neglect crime carries enhanced repeat offender penalties. That specific crime is abuse or neglect causing a risk of serious injury. However, without this amendment, an individual with a prior conviction might get a lighter sentence if they actually harmed the child. Obviously not a result that was intended. After all, they would not be subject to the repeat offender sentences because those sentences are reserved for abuse or neglect causing only a risk of injury. What the amendment does is seek to clean up the repeat offender sentences so that any individual with a prior conviction who commits another abuse and neglect crime will be subject to the enhanced penalties. That was the intent of the bill. The language as it was originally presented to the committee didn't accomplish that intent. The amendment attempts to clean that up and make the intent manifest. Mr. Speaker, I urge adoption of the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. For what purpose does the gentleman from 36, Delegate Rose, seek recognition?
If the chairman would yield, I had a question about the minimum penalty.
Chairman does yield.
Does the amendment change I think the bill has a minimum penalty increase from 1 year to 2 years. Does the amendment change that?
No, not at all.
Okay. And was there a fiscal note in the committee on this? Do you know if there was from corrections?
As is typical with these type of, yes, there was, to answer your question, but as is typical with these type of fiscal notes, it was basically, if it results in more people spending more time, here's the cost per day, basically, but without any prediction that it would and what that cost would be. That's the type of fiscal note we tend to get in these cases.
Was there any discussion in judiciary about the cost? I think we had figures from corrections at $25,000 to $26,000 a year per inmate for adults, and it was $110,000 for juveniles. This wouldn't apply to juveniles, would it?
Would not apply to juveniles.
Okay. So for inmates, if we raise that minimum, we're adding a year on, so that would be an extra $25,000 per person convicted under the statute, right?
Yes, to the gentleman, I think the discussion was more focused on protecting children from abuse than saving money.
All right. Thank you, sir.
The gentleman, 32nd, Delegate Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman please yield for another question? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under your amendment, the bill still only applies to where an abused child is actually injured, and that doesn't change with your amendment. Is that correct?
I think it changes with the risk of serious bodily injury as well.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
It's
hear.
basically directed toward repeat offenders. And it's trying to remove the operation of the bill that would make it more, that would incentivize actually injuring the child than it would exposing the child to a risk of serious injury. So on repeat offenses, whether there's actual injury or not, there is an enhanced penalty.
Does your amendment add a new section to the?
No, it actually just modifies language in subsection D.
E as in Edward?
D as in dog.
D, okay.
And E.
All right, I'll look at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does the gentleman from 27th wish to close debate on the amendment? If not, are there amendments to the amendment? If not, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment as explained by the gentleman from the 27th. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes have it. The primary amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced. Next bill on second reading.
House Bill 2954, defining certain terms used in insurance.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2982, amending and updating the laws relating to auctioneers.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3007, authorizing the Commissioner of Agriculture to require background checks.
Are there amendments? The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3039, relating to a court's consideration of the expression of a preference by a child in certain child custody matters.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3083, adding temporary work during legislative session as exclusion to the term employment for purposes of unemployment compensation.
Are there amendments? The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3093, relating to standards for factory-built homes.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 13, relating to distributions from state excess lottery fund.
Bill will be advanced.
Senate Bill 442, supplementing, amending, and decreasing appropriation insurance commission.
Bill will be advanced.
Senate Bill 443, supplemental appropriation of federal monies to DHHR divisions.
Bill will be advanced.
Senate Bill 444, supplemental appropriation to DHHR divisions.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2540, prohibiting the waste of game animals, game birds, or game fish.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2541, requiring certain safety measures be taken at public schools.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2807, creating an additional modification of the West Virginia adjusted gross income of shareholders of S corporations engaged in banking.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2829, relating to the termination of severance taxes on limestone and sandstone.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2837, relating to the licensing and advanced deposit wagering.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2901, allowing for the establishment of secondary location for racetrack video lottery terminals.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2934, permitting the interactive wagering authorized as West Virginia Lottery interactive wagering activities.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2968, adding remote service unit to the definition of customer bank communications terminal.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3134, establishing criminal penalties for negligent homicide and increasing criminal penalties for reckless driving.
Bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move subjects to announcements. The House recess until 6 p.m.
Lady from the 49th moves that subject to announcements. The House stand in recess until 6 p.m. Are there announcements? Gentleman from the 64th, Douglas Householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm requesting the availability of the House chamber on Friday morning, February 22nd at 8 a.m. for the purpose of a public hearing.
Chamber is available.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will hold a public hearing Friday morning, February 22nd at 8 a.m. on House Bill 2730.
The gentleman from the 10th, Douglas Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Finance Committee will resume the morning agenda at 2 p.m. today. Your committee will also meet Thursday morning at 9 a.m. to take up legislation. The agenda will be posted.
The gentleman from the 35th, Doug Capito.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on the Judiciary will continue the posted agenda at 1:30 in the committee room. 1:30 back up in the committee room. We're going to continue the agenda that we started this morning, and then tomorrow we will meet in the committee room at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. and that agenda will be posted for everyone. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 21st, Doug Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will resume their posted agenda at 2:30 today. Republican members will caucus in the chairman's office at 2 p.m. Also, we will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The agenda will be posted. Thank you.
Gentleman 28th, Doug Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will resume its posted agenda at 2 p.m. today in the House Government Organization Committee room.
Jump from the 41st, Doggett Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in 215E. Republican members will caucus in the chairman's office at 1:30. Agenda will be posted.
The lady from 51st, Doggett Fleischauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an interesting announcement that I think all legislators care about: pizza. Today, there is going to be a small party in room 230E. It was going to originally be 252. There was a mix-up about the room, to honor Katherine Johnson, the Katherine Johnson Fair Pay Act. And those of us who are sponsors and proponents believe all West Virginians should have 100% of the pie. So please come for your piece to 230 East, and you can find out a little bit more about the Fair Pay Act, because everybody deserves to have fair pay. 12:30 to 1:30.
The gentleman at 36, Doggett Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to report that we've done a little research on the redundancy of sexual orientation and gender identity, and the best we could come up with in the code, there is a reference concerning student data to be collected, let's see, the statute is 1825H. And it just says that no data can be collected regarding sexual orientation or anything about beliefs relating to sexual orientation. To my knowledge, there is no reference to gender identity in the code, and there's certainly no protection for people who would be affected by discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. We had a discussion concerning a discrimination clause, and it was contended that it was really redundant for us to adopt a non-discrimination clause in the Senate bill that was defeated. And I just wanted to report to the body that I don't think that it's redundant, that we don't have any protection in code for people who could be discriminated against on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity.
Chair would remind all members we are on announcements, not remarks. That will come later in the afternoon. The lady from the 32nd, Doggett Staggers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Democrats on Health and Human Resources will caucus in 2:30 tomorrow.
The gentleman from the 2nd, Doggett DeSario.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. West Virginia AFL-CIO will hold a labor caucus today, Wednesday, February 20th, immediately following the floor session in House Government Organization, room 215E, and lunch will be provided.
Before we take the vote on the lady's motion from the 49th, the chair would ask at this time all members and guests in the galleries to please briefly rise for a moment of silence. The gentleman from the 50th, Doggett Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our friend and colleague, Delegate Brent Boggs, lost his father-in-law, and that service is today. And we all see Jean around the Capitol. She's always here with Brent. So I would ask that the members stand in a moment of silence for Rachel C. Walker. He was a colonel in the United States Air Force.
House will observe a moment of silence. All members and guests may be seated. Are there further announcements? If not, the question before the House is a motion by the lady from the 49th that the House stand in recess until 6 p.m. this evening. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is in recess until 6 p.m.
Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. With those on our floor and our guests in the gallery, please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Reverend Mark Wood. He's with First Baptist Church in Spencer, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senior senator from the 5th, Pastor Wood.
Let us pray. Almighty God, as we come before you today, we thank you first for this day that you have given to us, as well as an opportunity to serve in your name. We pray, Lord, for faithfulness in doing what you've called us to do. Your word tells us that we were created in your image, and that has to do with more than just a physical appearance. It also deals with our hearts and our thoughts. So we pray, Lord, that we be a representation of you this day in the things that we think, the words that we speak, the actions that we take. We pray for this body, Lord, that you give wisdom and discernment. And again, Lord, that you bless what takes place here this day. These things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. The senior senator from the 5th.
Let's honor our flag and our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 19th, 2019.
The senator from Tucker County requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As guest of the junior senator from the 4th, we have Hayden Hodge. As guest of the senator from Mercer County, Emma Furchess, Reagan Southers, Damian Stevenson. And as guest of the senator from Boone, Kayla Meadows. As guest of the senator from Raleigh, Ethan Bowman, Caleb Woolweaver, Callie Woolweaver. And as guest of the senior senator from the 16th, Matthew Lombard and Sam Seguri. If they would all please rise and the Senate give them a warm welcome. Thank you. You may be seated. Further introductions. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure and yours to introduce the doctor for the day. In the rear of the chamber, we have with us Dr. Philip Galifon. He is the chairman of the Academy of Family Physicians. If you wouldn't mind standing, let the Senate give you a warm welcome.
Senator from Raleigh County.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the parent of Caleb and Callie Woolweaver, Tony Woolweaver, up in the North Gallery. And if she would stand, we would like to give her a warm welcome.
Senator from Mercer County.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've introduced our pages from Mercer County today, and we have family members in the gallery. I'd like to have them stand and be recognized. Father of Reagan is Greg Southers. Mother of Emma is Randy Fuller, and grandparents of Damien are Sonia and Stephen Shrewsbury. If they would all stand and Senate make them welcome.
The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Here with Hayden Hodge, our page today is his family. They're over here in the North Gallery, and if you could please stand, we recognize you. It's Tony Hodge, Jessica Hodge, and Lennon Hodge. Would the Senate please give them a warm welcome.
Senator from Wetzel County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased and happy today to have visiting with us my daughter and son-in-law and their 2 children from Georgia as they're passed through to stop to see this West Virginia Senate in action. Would the Senate please make them, they'd stand, the Senate will make them welcome.
Senator from Boone County.
Mr. President, on behalf of the senator from Logan, we're very pleased to have the chaperones of our page from Sherman Junior High School. Her mother, Tabitha Meadows, and Vicki Turner, their friend. If they would stand, the Senate make them welcome.
The senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to be able to introduce this morning some very special people. Over the last 25 months, the Secretary of State's office has been working closely with our 55 county clerks to make sure every eligible West Virginia resident is registered to vote. Working with political party leaders and civic engagement groups like Inspire West Virginia, more than 107,000 new voters have been registered in 2 years. Notably, Mr. President, more than 33,000 of those newly registered voters are from our high school student population. That is why This morning, I'd like to honor, and I ask all of our senators here this morning to honor students today who were responsible for leading registration drives and achieving at least 85% registration of those eligible high school students in their schools. This morning, we honor those with the Jennings-Randolph Award. For their achievement, they have been designated as Honorary Secretary of State. These students are in the gallery this morning with Secretary of State Mike Warner in the President's Gallery. Mr. President, I would ask that each of these honored guests stand as I call their name. From Nicholas County High School, we have Olivia Peyton Carpenter and Braden Hornsby. From Richwood High School, we have Kenley Miller and Zach Taylor. From Logan High School in Logan County, we have Cameron Adkins with County Clerk John Turner. And from Clay County High School, Riley Taylor. As well, the Secretary of State is in our gallery. If they would all please rise, and if the Senate would please extend a very warm welcome this morning.
The senior senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator from Jefferson and I are very pleased to have the mothers of our honorary pages here today, and if they would please stand, it's Kelly Lombard and Melissa Segra. So if they would please stand and receive a warm Senate welcome.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Up in the gallery today, we have some of my friends from the local 439. We have 8 apprentices, 2 journeymen, and they are led by Scott Brewer. I'd ask they stand and Senate make them welcome.
Further introduction, the junior senator from the 8th.
Yes, Mr. President, on your behalf and on behalf of the senior senator from the 8th District, I'd like to introduce in the South Gallery laborers from Local 1085 out of Parkersburg, led by Jesse King, and the Pipefitters Local 625 out of Charleston, led by Mike Rhodes. If they could stand and if the Senate could make them feel welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Further introductions, the senator from Mercer County again.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to make a special introduction. In the gallery, we have Natalia Kazankova, an exchange student from the Ukraine on full scholarship from the U.S. Department of State. She's a straight A junior at Princeton High School. If she would stand and Senate make her welcome.
Senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seated in the North Gallery, we have Miss Kelly Simpson. She is the Community Living Services Program Coordinator for Mountain State Centers for Independent Living. Her organization is under West Virginia Rehabilitation Services. She is joined by a client, Miss Howard. Senate, will you join me and please make them welcome?
Senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today's Tourism Day. In our rear gallery, we have Annette Gavin Bates, and there's about 12 other people with her. So would they please stand and the Senate make them welcome?
Further introductions, the senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Monroe, we'd like to welcome Mr. Danny Gray today. Danny's a retired educator and administrator who's here today advocating on behalf of our senior citizens with AARP. Will the Senate please make Danny feel welcome?
Further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House amended and passed Senate Bill 377 relating to minimum wage and maximum hour standards.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with the amendments made to Senate Bill 377.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 377. Is there discussion? The Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this bill was to exclude seasonal amusement park workers from the definition of employee for the purposes of maximum hour standards. Why the action was taken was that the amendment clarifies that the seasonal employees of commercial whitewater outfitter and seasonal employees of an amusement park are exempt from the maximum hour provisions of Section 21-5C-3. The House amendment was purely technical. I urge passage.
Is there further discussion? Not. Question for the Senate is, shall the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 377? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the motion adopted. The question now is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question being 30 yeas, 3 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House adopted the Conference Committee report and passed House Bill 2351 relating to regulating prior authorizations.
Message be received. The Senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your conference committee on House Bill 2351 has met, and after a full and free conference has reached an agreement. The bill deals with prior authorizations the new, basically, both the House and the Senate agreed to recede from their positions and to adopt a new amendment. The new amendment that was adopted basically cleaned up mistakes and omissions that were present within the House amendment. Specifically, language is added within each section to make each section consistent with each other. Each section now does read the same. I urge adoption.
The Senator from Marshall County moves that the Committee of Conference be adopted. Is there discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of motion by the Senator from Marshall. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the report adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended by the Committee of Conference report. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2439 relating to fire service equipment and training funds for volunteer and part volunteer fire companies.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2542 permitting directors of county emergency phone systems to obtain mobile phone emergency lines.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2947 relating generally to telemedicine prescription practice requirements and exceptions.
Message be received, referred to Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 2958 authorizing the state auditor to conduct regular financial examinations or audits of all volunteer fire companies.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Government Organization. Are there further House messages?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive.
I have a letter dated February 11th addressed to the Honorable Mitch Carmichael, President of the West Virginia Senate. Dear President Carmichael, pursuant pursuant to the provisions of Section 14, Article 7 of the Constitution of West Virginia, I hereby disapprove and return Enrolled Senate Bill 272. This bill purports to update the composition, powers, and procedures of the Commission on Special Investigations. In addition, the bill purports to create misdemeanor offenses for the impersonation and obstruction of Commission's members or staff. Many state agencies have confidential data that is required to be protected from disclosure, including the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, Workforce West Virginia, and the Office of the West Virginia Tax Commissioner. With regard to the West Virginia tax information, West Virginia Code 1110-5D prohibits the unauthorized disclosure of tax information by the tax department under the penalty of misdemeanor. The tax commissioner and his or her staff would be in the untenable position of choosing which offense to violate in misdemeanor, either violate West Virginia Tax Code by disclosing confidential tax information or violate the Commission on Special Investigations state code that makes obstruction of their request for information a misdemeanor. The tax commissioner and his staff, as well as other state agencies, would be forced to have to litigate over the manner and disclosure of the information in each instance, creating a pointless waste of state resources. I ask that you work with the executive branch agencies to rectify these issues so that the state agencies may be able to comply with West Virginia Code to ensure transparency while protecting the privacy and confidentiality of protected information. As a result of these issues, I disapprove and return Enrolled Senate Bill 272. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
The junior senator from the 17th. Message be received.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move in accordance with Section 14, Article 7 of the Constitution of the State of West Virginia that the Senate proceed to reconsider enrolled committee substitute for Senate Bill 272, heretofore disapproved and returned by His Excellency the Governor with his objections.
The question before the Senate is adoption of the Majority Leader's motion that the Senate do reconsider enrolled committee substitute for Senate Bill number 272, heretofore disapproved and returned by the Governor with his objections. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to amend the bill.
The clerk will report the amendments.
Senator Takubo moved to amend the bill on page 1 by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Governor's veto was premised upon his concern that the language of the vetoed bill might be read as to put agency personnel in jeopardy of criminal prosecution for refusing a CSI request for documents deemed confidential under state or federal law. The proposed amendment clears up the ambiguity underlining the Governor's veto and makes some technical and linguistic changes. There is also a title amendment. Council has been apprised that the changes contained in this amendment does fix the Governor's concerns. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the junior senator from the 17th. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendments adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. Is there discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Senator from Nicholas. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain results. On this question there being 29 yeas, 4 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed as amended as a result of the objections of the Governor. Clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Takubo moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 11 relating to retirement and pension benefits of certain PERS and Teachers Retirement System members who serve in Legislature, and committee substitute for Senate Bill 546 relating to health care provider taxes, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 80, establishing tax credit for practicing physicians locating in West Virginia, and reports back a committee substitute for same. Senate Bill 564, expanding comprehensive coverage for pregnant women through Medicaid, and reports back a committee substitute for same. And Senate Bill 641, relating to primary care support program, and reports back a committee substitute for same. With the recommendation that the 3 committee substitutes do pass, but under the original double committee references, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
Report will be received under the bills. Report will be received. The Senior Senator from the 15th.
641, we're on. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to waive the second reference to the Committee on Finance.
Senior Senator from the 15th requests unanimous consent to waive the second committee reference to the Committee on Finance as it relates to Senate Bill 641. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
80 and 564.
Under the bills, a report will be received under the bill's original double committee reference. Senate Bills number 80 and Senate Bill number 564 will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 86, requiring county boards provide free feminine hygiene products in grades 6 to 12, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with a recommendation that the committee substitute for committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 330, requiring contact information be listed on agency's online directory and website, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Gregory L. Boso, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 383, creating West Virginia Healthy Food Crop Block Grant Program, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute for committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 396, waiving occupational licensing fees for low-income individuals, military families, and young workers, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Gregory L. Boso, Chair.
Report will be received under the bill's original double committee reference, will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 404, relating generally to sediment control during commercial timber harvesting operations, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Gregory L. Boso, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 415, creating Timber Co-Tenancy Modernization and Majority Protection Act and Unknown and Unlocatable Timber Interest Owners Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same. And Senate Bill 585, defining stalking as repeated course of conduct, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the 2 committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration Senate Bill 485, defining reduction in coverage and clarifying termination for property insurance, and reports back committee substitute for same, and Senate Bill 506, relating to guarantee associations, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the 2 committee substitutes do pass. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Bill 493, correcting terminology referring to racing vehicles illegally on street, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles H. Clements, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 529, clarifying provisions of Non-Intoxicating Beer Act, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration Senate Bill 531 relating generally to workers' compensation claims and has amended same and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 593 permitting Critical Access Hospital become Community Outpatient Medical Center and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Military has had under consideration Senate Bill 596 adjusting voluntary contribution amounts on certain DMV forms, engrossed House Bill 2036 permitting vehicles displaying disabled veterans' special registration plates to park in places where persons with mobility impairments may park, and engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2821, updating provisions for command, clerical, and other pay, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Ryan W. Weld, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration Senate Bill 624 relating to administering ACT and SAT tests to 11th grade students and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Patricia Partes Rucker, Chair.
Report will be received. The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the second reference be dispensed with.
Yeah. The senior senator from the 15th requests unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance as it relates to Senate Bill 621 be waived. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Excuse me, it's the second reference to Senate Bill 624 shall be waived. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 664. Relating to authorizing certain members of the federal judiciary to perform marriages, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Military has had under consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution 35 designating days for displaying honor and remember flag at West Virginia Veterans Memorial and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Ryan W. Weld, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2612 proposing rules related to the completion or updating of source water protection plans and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Gregory L. Boso, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2740 barring a parent from inheriting from a child in certain instances, and engrossed House Bill 2746 relating to administration of estates and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
And finally, your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 2759 providing for the ancillary administration of West Virginia real estate owned by non-residents by affidavit or without administration, and has amended same and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills.
There are none.
Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 52 by Senators Weld, Ehlenfeld, Prezioso, Hardesty, Stallings, Roberts, Jeffries, Lindsay, Seipolt, Romano, Swope, Baldwin, Hamilton, and Plymel, recognizing the West Virginia State Police on its 100th anniversary.
The Senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Senator from Brooke County requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 52, recognizing the West Virginia State Police on the occasion of its 100th anniversary.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The West Virginia State Police are the 6th oldest police agency in the United States. The agency was established 100 years ago by an act of the state legislature. And the agency, like the state, was born in an era of political unrest and violence. The country was beginning to feel the impacts of World War I, and trouble was nearly unavoidable. In a very hotly contested battle in the legislature, the state police bill was passed by the House on March 24th, 1919, passed by this body on March 29th, and signed by Governor Cornwell into law on March 31st. 3 months later, Governor Cornwell appointed the first superintendent of the West Virginia State Police, Jackson Arnold. Arnold and Cornwell worked together to quickly create the expectations of the quality of those they sought to join the agency. Then, good men of character, now good men and women of character, tact, intelligence, and capable of maintaining neutrality. The fundamentals of the state police agency operation must be politeness and service. The first trooper, Sam Taylor, was enlisted on July 24th of 1919. By the end of November, 121 men were selected and assembled for duty. Today, there are more than 1,000 state troopers in 63 facilities across the state. The West Virginia State Police houses and maintains various statewide law enforcement entities such as the State Police Forensic Crime Lab, the Criminal Identification Bureau, the Automated Police Network System, and the Intelligence Exchange. This year, the West Virginia State Police celebrates 100 years of service, serving our citizens with integrity, fairness, respect, honesty, courage, and compassion. Mr. President, as an assistant prosecutor in Brooke County, I got to know many troopers in the Northern Panhandle, and I can say that the words that I just read rang true for all of them, and the way that they handled their job and the way that they served the people of West Virginia. And I'm certain that the same can be true for all of the men and women that we have in the back of the chamber right now. All the members of this body know that on any given day while we're here in service to the state, we have at least 2 troopers in the back in service to us. And they stand there for as long as we're debating on the floor and as long as we're debating bills, and they don't even get to vote, but they have to listen to us the entire time. And I always respect that, and I always respect their dedication to their job and the people of the state. So I'm happy to be a part of this resolution, and I urge its adoption.
Further discussion? Further discussion. The senator from Braxton County.
Thank you, Mr. President. For some of you know and some of you don't that we operate a trucking company that trucks all over the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And from time to time, I get in one of the trucks and go, and from occasions, I get the opportunity to talk to troopers in other states. And sometimes it's not for a good reason, but neither the less. We always talk about West Virginia and our troopers. And the one thing that's always impressed me, regardless of what state I go to, the West Virginia state troopers are respected by the rest of the troopers. They talk about our academy, our training, and so on. And it makes you feel good when you're from West Virginia and probably getting ready to get a ticket anyhow, and at least say something good. But it's always struck me of how that they respect our state troopers all over the state. That says all over the country, and that says a lot. Urge adoption of the resolution.
Further discussion. The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I get a little bit of a different perspective with state troopers. Being a physical therapist, I've got to be able to treat several of these guys when they're off duty. And one of the things that really has impressed me when I see them off duty is the professionalism of this group and where their heart is in their service. And so, you really see the character of a person when they don't know somebody's watching. Well, when you're in a physical therapy environment, it's a fun, social type thing, and your guard's down. I can tell you, I have never found a reason not to have the utmost respect for these men. So I thank you for what you do. You put your life at risk. You put your limb at risk. I am very proud to support this resolution. Thank you for being here.
Senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd feel I left them down if I didn't get up and speak about the group. I've got to be really good friends with a lot of them because I go back in the back of the gallery on occasions and beginning the session and harass them a little bit. I'm always teasing them about make sure they keep an eye on the North Gallery. That's the only gallery that can get to me. And we have, we rib each other a good bit about the West Virginia car inspections about I'm going to amend it that we can use Gorilla Tape with as well as duct tape, and they had concerns about using the cheaper duct tape. But what I'm getting at is this group here is probably, if not one of the most professional groups we have in the state. Now, I've been stopped by them several times, and I'm not bragging. I'm not complaining either. But they've always been professional, and I've had to deal with them a couple times with deaths, and it doesn't matter which situation we're in, they always have the professionalism. I mean, it's always yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and a lot of time in their line of work, I don't know how they keep that professionalism with some of the people that they have to deal with, because they deal with the people that we don't want to deal with, and they keep their professionalism, and they're just a great group, and I'm proud to call a lot of them friends now, and I got to meet them not on bad circumstances, so that even makes the friendship a lot better. But I just wanted to stand up and just say how much I do appreciate them on and off the job. Like I said, they're a good group of people, and they got voted best looking trooper cars in the United States, so that says something for them right there. I mean, they drive some pretty nice vehicles. So with that being said, I urge adoption.
Further discussion, Senator from Ohio County.
President, my time with the state police goes back many decades, and I think back to when I was about 12 years old, and there was some criminal activity going on my street back in Ohio County, and it wasn't common to have what very apparently was drug trafficking going on my street, but there was an investigation, and then there was a bust, and the green cars pulled up, and my dad said to me, "Son, don't worry, the state police are here, it's going to be taken care of." And we stood out on our porch and we watched as they went in and arrested the bad guys and took them away. So that was my first impression. And then fast forward about 13 years, I became an assistant prosecutor, and I worked with this agency for nearly 2 decades. And it is the premier law enforcement agency in our state. And not only do they keep our roadways safe, but they are relentless in going after drug traffickers and violent criminals and monitoring and tracking down sex offenders. It's this agency that keeps us all safe. And this body needs to make sure that it supports this agency as much as it possibly can. It's harder and harder for the state police to recruit. It's hard for all police agencies to recruit new officers. So we need to make sure that we support them as much as we possibly can. They've got a target on their backs. What they do is dangerous. They run into situations that all of us would run from. And so we need to make sure we keep that in mind as we serve in this Senate. And so I would urge full support of this agency and adoption of this resolution.
For other members, Senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the privilege of having a unique association with this particular group as compared to most of the people in this body. We get to call ourselves emergency first responders. As a firefighter, I've been out at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning when you're having to tear a car apart to remove a young victim of an auto accident. Those are the tragedies that we get to see together. And I've had an opportunity over my 40-plus year career as a firefighter here in West Virginia to be able to work at some really difficult situations at very difficult times. Yes, they're very tough, they're very proven, they're very professional, but one of the things that I've learned about this elite group of people is that they have a heart, and they hurt in very unique ways in those very difficult situations. Whether it's on a car accident scene at 2 o'clock in the morning, or whether it is a mother who has been beaten severely by a partner in a situation. After they walk away, I've seen the tears and the heartbreak on their faces. They have a heart. And They do this because of their passion and because of their love for their fellow human beings. Ladies and gentlemen of the West Virginia State Police, on this 100th anniversary, I salute you. Mr. President, I urge adoption of this resolution.
Other members desiring to speak to the senator from Logan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to stand up in support of this resolution. I also have a different perspective with respect to this agency. My son-in-law is a proud member of the West Virginia State Police, and we're very proud of him and what he's accomplished. But as I look in the back of the room, I've got a lot of friends back here, male and female members of this great organization. And what comes to mind is these are the 3 C's with the state police. They have character. They have compassion on their fellow men and women across this state. When they don't have these green uniforms on, they're active participants in every community in which they live, and we appreciate that. And lastly, the 3rd C, they have class, first class. I appreciate what you all do for all West Virginians every day, putting your lives on the line, going into the toughest conditions possible, and delivering a consistent product. And for that, I'll always be indebted to each and every one of you. I urge adoption of the resolution.
The senator from Monongalia County.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, the gentleman from Nicholas said the words, first responders. And I can remember on numerous occasions in my lifetime when these guys were the first responders. In the late 60s, I had an aunt who was kidnapped. These were the first responders. In the early 70s, tragedy hit our family with the Blacksville mine disaster. These were the first responders. Even the home fire, as the gentleman mentioned, of another family member, these were the first responders. And I can name occasion after occasion after occasion when these guys were there. So for us to take 100 years to celebrate, it may seem like time has really passed, but I'm glad we're all here to take advantage of that opportunity right now to celebrate this time with these folks. I urge adoption, Mr. President. Ask for the yeas and nays.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the resolution? Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the comments made by the senators from Brooke, Braxton, the junior from the 4th, Tucker, Ohio, Nicholas, Logan, and Monongalia counties be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. A roll call has been demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Are there further resolutions?
Yes, sir. Senate Resolution 53 by Senators Stallings, Hardesty, Prezioso, Jeffries, Lindsay, Romano, Baldwin, Hamilton, and Plymel, recognizing recent increase in black lung cases in West Virginia.
The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 53, recognizing the recent increase in black lung cases in West Virginia.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. In my day job as a physician and a geriatrician, I see a lot of minors and retired minors, and they have trouble breathing. We are seeing an increase in black lung and an increase in massive pulmonary fibrosis. The studies are backing that up. We're not exactly sure why. Maybe we're taking more rock than we used to, and maybe we're not wearing our respirators as much as we should. But nevertheless, it's certainly on the rise. I've also seen people with really bad-looking x-rays that tell me they've gone for a black lung evaluation, and they said, yeah, you have black lung, but not enough to get any award for it. And that's very disheartening because they have really bad black lung. I'm talking massive pulmonary fibrosis. What turns out that basically we're not looking at the x-ray anymore as a reason for an award. It's just based on what's called the FVC, forced vital capacity, or the FEV1, which is the amount of air comes out of your lungs in the first second, or a ratio, or diffusion studies. And a lot of that measures obstructive airway disease more than restrictive airway disease, which is what black lung is. So I've spoken to a lot of people, and including folks at the School of Public Health, to try to keep a check on this. And we have bills in this in our Senate here that we could help them with, and particularly Senate Bill 260 basically brings back in the x-ray as a possibility to consider for a black lung award. So hopefully that'll be looked at, hopefully passed. So sometimes it takes severe lung disease, severe black lung, before people can get an award. And autopsies even show black material in the airways causing this obstruction. So certainly want this Senate to do what it can for our hardworking coal miners, retired coal miners, and urge adoption of this resolution.
Is there further discussion? The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand in support of this resolution. My day job also puts me in contact with these individuals on a daily basis, and it is one of the most sad, disheartening things to see, because there's really nothing that can be done for them, to be honest. We can always care. We try to help with symptom relief, but as the senator from Boone spoke, the medicines that we typically use just don't work. And what you watch these gentlemen that put their backbones into absolute back-breaking work for many, many years has to just sit and suffer. And we watch their lung function slowly deteriorate to the point that oftentimes the only thing that we can offer is lung transplantation. And by the times they retire, and by the times other health conditions have progressed, they may not be a candidate for that. And so the pendulum has swung a little too far in this state. These gentlemen oftentimes are proud. They don't want to ask for help, but they need it. And I agree that I hope this legislation passes. I certainly support this resolution and for bringing attention to the problem.
Further discussion. Further discussion. The senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support of the resolution. Many of you know this July will be 40 years for me as an underground coal miner. You know, I have black lung. I've had about 15 years, I guess. It's been 15 years since I was diagnosed with it, and I can tell you it's not fun. I mean, I'm still, you know, basically what you would call the early stages, but I know I have grandchildren now, and I know just as something as simple, just, you know, a few weeks ago I went sled riding with them, and you know, it's an awful feeling not to be able to get your air you need, and it's a terrible disease. Like I said, I've been in this will be 40 years, and I've lost a lot of friends to black lung. And it's a terrible disease, you know, and I'm relatively young. I mean, don't ask my grandkids or anything. They think I'm an old man, but, you know, I'm only 58. And, you know, and I think a lot about what it's going to be like in another 5 years or another 10 years if I make it that long. And anybody here that's ever got their breath knocked out of them, that feeling, I mean, believe it or not, at one time I played football. I only weighed 115 pounds, but I was a tough 115 pounds. And, you know, I had my breath knocked out of me. And that's sort of how you just get periods of time where you just can't, it's like you can't get enough breath. And it's a bad feeling. And, you know, and this, you know, what we're talking about isn't something, you know, drastic or whatever. It's just basically taking it back to what's fair, you know, using the science. You know, I go every year to get a breathing test where I blow into a tube, and you know, and if it's a good day, I can blow pretty good in the tube. And if it's a bad day, you know, I struggle with it. But it's a terrible disease, and you know, and I'll be the first one to admit a lot of it. I was young and dumb, and you know, you're indispensable when you don't take care of yourself like you should. But that's still, you know, there's no excuse not to try to make, you know, these people's lives in as they get older, and it really affects them. You know, to get them some kind of some help to. You know, just basically a lot of times just pay bills. I mean, we're not talking about sitting by vacation homes or whatever. It's just so you can take care of yourself and take care of your family. So with that being said, Mr. President, I urge adoption of the resolution.
Other members desiring to speak to the resolution? Not. Question for the Senator from Marion County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the comments by the Senator from Boone, the junior Senator from the 17th, and the Senator from Tucker be printed in the appendix of the Journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Are there other members? The Senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully support this resolution and Senate Bill 260. I want to take this on a little bit different path. You know, black lung doesn't discriminate whether you're a union miner or a non-union miner. It affects everybody in the mines. And I remember about 13 years ago, United Mine Workers Rescue Teams answered a call to Sago in Upshur County. They didn't ask the question, is this a union mine or a non-union mine? They came. They were one of the first rescue teams on the grounds of Sago. And now they're asking us to do something. Recognize them and recognize that black lung is a problem, and we need to pass these two bills. Thank you.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the resolution? Not. Question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. Are there further resolutions?
Yes, sir. Senate Resolution 54 by Senators Stallings, Hardesty, Prezioso, Jeffries, Lindsay, Romano, Baldwin, Hamilton, and Plymel, recognizing the West Virginia Freedom Festival on its 20th anniversary.
The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, the resolution be put upon its adoption.
The senator from Boone County requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 54, recognizing the West Virginia Freedom Festival on the occasion of its 20th anniversary.
Question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Boone County.
Mr. President, 20-year anniversary of the Freedom Festival in Logan, West Virginia. And it's gone from basically a little 3-hour venue to a 4-day venue. It's a fun time. I enjoy going over there. Great stuff to eat, great entertainment, great people. It's a family atmosphere. It truly is, I guess, the biggest deal in Logan, kind of. I'd argue with that. I'd argue to say that it is the biggest deal in Logan. It's grown tremendously, and it's a great honor to have the mayor here and the city manager, and I urge adoption of the resolution.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the resolution adopted. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting the resolution.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the Senate in recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Are there further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 39, requesting creation of Joint Select Committee on requirements governing water quality standards.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Rules.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 40, naming the U.S. Army Corporal Roy E. Clark Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 41, requesting study creating paid family and medical leave insurance program.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources and then to the Committee on Rules. Is there further unfinished business?
No, sir.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 310, establishing certain requirements for dental insurance. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The Senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 310 pertains to agreements between dentists and insurance providers. In addition to the bill containing definitions, it also provides a layer of protection for dentists by not allowing a third-party administrator from dictating to a provider fees that they should charge on services which that third-party administrator does not cover. The language in the bill specifically states that a contract may not require approval of a fee by the network unless it's a covered service pursuant to the underlying contract. In other words, an insurance provider cannot dictate a fee to a provider, such as a dentist, on a service that insurance provider does not cover. This bill also states that dentists are to charge their usual and customary fee for services and cannot be required by a plan to charge more for uncovered services. Lastly, this bill requires a reasonable reimbursement to a provider by a plan, thereby precluding a plan from providing a nominal service simply to claim the services are covered services. So in other words, the insurance provider cannot provide say they cover something for a nominal fee, but they're just in order to set that fee. Finally, the bill has an internal effective date of July 1st, 2019. The language in this bill, Mr. President, is model language adopted by the National Council of Insurance Legislators in 2010, and we would be the 39th state to adopt this language if this bill passes today. As mentioned by the clerk, there's a proposed committee substitute for the committee substitute which corrects the defective title. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion. Not the question before the Senate, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective July 1, 2019, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective July 1, 2019, and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective July 1, 2019. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 344 relating to operation of state-owned farms. Third reading of the bill.
Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day and retains place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 360 relating to third-party litigation financing. Third reading of the bill.
Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 360 would provide new consumer protections and regulation with respect to the business of litigation financing. and it would do that by creating a new article in the state code. It goes in Chapter 46A, and it's designated as Article 6N. And the new article would have 9 sections in it, 1 through 9. Section 1 contains definitions of terms used in the article. Section 2 requires the registration of any business that's going to do litigation financing or be a litigation financier. With the registration with the Secretary of State, there are requirements in the code in that section for a bond, a $50,000 bond to be posted. Section 3 delineates requirements for litigation financiers, requirements of such things as written contracts. Contracts have to have a right of rescission. People have a right to cancel once they've entered into such a contract. Certain acknowledgments by the consumers. Information about whether the consumer is represented by an attorney. Section 4 has prohibitions, a list of things that litigation financiers are prohibited from doing. One is paying commissions or referral fees to lawyers or medical providers, doctors, chiropractors, anybody like that. False advertisings, accepting commissions, failing to supply copies of the documents to their customers or consumers, attempting to obtain any kind of remedy in the litigation. So this bill is crafted the way it came out of our committee to try to keep litigation financiers out of the any decision-making process in the litigation for which they're providing money to a consumer. Section 5 describes the litigation financing contracts and certain disclosures that have to be in them about the terms of the contract, the customer's right to cancel. Section 6 relates to third-party agreements. Section 7 is enforcement. Section 8 allows the contingent right to receive an amount of the proceeds, potential proceeds of a legal claim to be assigned by a consumer. So that authorizes the business. Section 9 has provisions regarding fees and terms. It sets a maximum charge. The maximum adopted by the committee is 18%. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I would urge the passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 31 yeas, 1 nay, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 512, regulating pawnbrokers. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 512 does what the short title says. It amends the statutory regulations regarding the business of pawnbroker activity. It does that by amending 3 existing sections of the code, sections 1, 2, and 3 of Chapter 47, Article 6, and it inserts a new section into that article designated as Section 2A. Defines some new terms in Section 1, defines gift cards, store gift cards, in addition to the definitions that are already in that section of the code. It requires in Section 2, subsection E, a pawnbroker to equip his or her premises with video equipment that is capable of archiving footage for 30 days, and it sets an internal effective date for that of January 1, 2021. Section 2A are new prohibitions. So that's where the meat of the bill is. Pawnbroker may not accept in pawn, articles from a minor, articles from anybody who appears to be intoxicated, articles that a pawnbroker knows or has reason to believe are stolen, prepaid gift cards, store credits, merchandise cards, and a property where the serial numbers or personalized initials have been altered or obliterated or rendered illegible. Be happy to try to answer questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion. The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill has good intent, trying to get a handle on thieving and things that are going on that are not right in society, and I really do not condone that behavior. However, there was no pawnbrokers that were there to defend themselves in the committee, and so after the committee meeting, I contacted some, and one from Huntington that also has a location in Kentucky as well as in West Virginia, and as far as not allowing them to take gift cards, he says you can go to the mall to a kiosk and insert a gift card and get cash, and also you can sell them online. However, he said that same day he got a call from a legislator in Kentucky, and they were reducing legislation and regulation on pawnbrokers. And at the same day, I called him to tell him we were increasing regulation on him. I just felt like they didn't get to have a voice to vet this properly, so I'm going to have to urge a no vote on this bill. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion. The senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill's come up several times, and I know that the intentions of this bill are good. But I think we should always be leery when the state is forcing a small business to make a purchase like that. I think the ACA was essentially that, right? The state government, the federal government, forcing the purchase of insurance, and this on a much smaller scale, but the same principle. You have the state forcing small business to make a purchase that they may or may not be able to afford, but the fundamental principle is that this isn't the place of the state government. So for that reason, and the not allowing these places to take a vanilla card is also, I believe, the state crossing the line. So for those reasons, I am in opposition to the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
There's a further discussion. The senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the perspectives of my fellow colleagues, but I'm going to disagree on this particular piece of legislation. Just a few minutes ago, we honored an elite group of people with their 100th anniversary who are celebrating this year, our state police officers. We need to make sure that we're providing our law enforcement community every tool available to them to be able to attack and address situations that are being used to generate revenue. Many times businesses are raided and taken, their property is taken and taken to these pawn shops. And there needs to be an effective way to, first of all, make sure that the property is tracked, but second of all, make sure that the proprietors are doing the things that they are required to do with regard to recording transactions and making sure that when those exchange of funds are made, that they're properly recorded so that in the event that was an unlawful transaction, though the proprietor of a pawn business is not necessarily the one that should be held responsible. He did his steps, did it appropriately, transferred the money, but we can hold accountable those people who are willing to take from people in our community and do it for their personal gain. Many of these transactions come out of the opioid problem that we've got and the illicit drug traffic that we have going on within our state. Our law enforcement is stretched thin. Just a few minutes ago, we heard the fact that, it's very difficult to recruit law enforcement officers. Again, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support those individuals in order to protect the property and the liberties of those at home. I urge passage of this particular bill.
Is there further discussion? The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to echo all the comments that have been made, the ones that are for and the ones that are against, and I understand. But I want to thank the senator from Morgan for looking at this piece of legislation. You know, I've been here 3 sessions so far, and we have tried and we have passed legislation that helps to try to reduce our opioid crisis that we have in West Virginia, and it is a crisis, and I think we all know that. And you know, we have done things to open up new treatment beds, and with like the Ryan Brown Fund, we've done things to reduce the prescriptions. And we've also passed legislation for alternative ways to treat pain without having to prescribe opioids. And I think that's great. And I think we need to continue to do that. But over the weekend, last weekend, I had the opportunity, was invited to a round table, and a lot of discussion about the opioid crisis. And one thing that came up in that meeting was about the pawnbrokers, pawn shops. Speaking with law enforcement, just as the senator from Nicholas spoke about, I have met with law enforcement, and that is almost the #1 thing that comes up: do something about the pawn shops. And I believe that this is not the fix. It's a small fix. It's not the overall fix, but it's a fix to be able to curb some of our opioid situations that we get into. People breaking into homes, stealing things. I personally know someone that had an experience with that. 11 o'clock at night, looking out her window, watching a guy go through the garage, stealing leaf blowers, weed eater. Where did it end up at? It ended up at the pawn shop. So I believe that as I said, that this is a small piece to be able to help curb some of our situations. Even talking with faith-based groups that are on the front lines trying to help these individuals that have an addiction. Their #1 thing is fix the pawn shops. That's where we're finding that these individuals are getting their money to be able to purchase these pills. So for that, Mr. President, I urge passage of the...
Other members desiring to speak to the bill? Senator Morgan wishes to close debate. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 23 yeas, 9 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 519, requiring county emergency dispatchers complete course for telephonic cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 519 was a bill that was introduced at the request of the American Heart Association. The purpose of this bill is to add an additional training requirement to dispatchers at county emergency call centers. This training would focus on providing telephonic CPR. The training is required to be nationally recognized and would be selected by the medical director of the dispatch center. The bill sets out that the required training would become effective 7/1/2020 and would require all persons hired after 7/1/2019 to complete the training. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 553 relating to federal funds for land-grant institutions. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of Senate Bill 553 is to ensure that the state provides the full matching funds required for its 2 land-grant institutions to claim their full federal funding. The code requires that a state provide matching funds to those federal funds appropriated to its land-grant institutions. Currently, West Virginia State University is set to receive $2,946,380 in federal research and extension funds. The state has budgeted only $1,586,640 in matching funds. Federal law requires non-matched funds to be redistributed to an eligible institution whose state has provided full matching funds. The bill also requires that the budget include a separate line item indicating the matching amount to be appropriated to each of the state's 2 land-grant institutions, WVU and WVSU. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective July 1, 2019. Request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective July 1, 2019, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective July 1, 2019. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 587 relating to PEIA reimbursement of air ambulance providers. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 587 amends a single section of the state code. It's Chapter 5, Article 16, Section 8A. Article 16 is a PEIA. Public Employees Insurance Act. And this section relates to air ambulance fees, and it's being amended to conform the statute to a decision of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit that was rendered last year in a case. The case was Air Evac EMS versus Cheatham. And I've got the cite for it here if anybody wants it, but it was a 2018 case. This statute regulates the payment of air fees, and it was found by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals that it was not in conformity with federal law, which preempts it. It's the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, which preempts state regulation of airfares, and the Fourth Circuit found that included these fees. I think they're largely helicopters, but I'm not sure about that. There are some other clarifications in here. It makes it clear that the changes in the bill are not intended to limit the authority of the director that he's given in other parts of the article, and the plan under other parts of the article, and it applies, makes clear that it applies to reimbursement of air providers under the article, including administrative, civil, or criminal penalties that are inapplicable. Be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, question before the Senate is shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 601 relating to mandatory supervision of adult inmates. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is shall the bill pass? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 601 amends a single section of the state code. It is 15A, Article 4, Section 17A. I'm sorry, it's a new section. It's not an amendment to an existing section. We're creating a new section of code here, and it's in the Article 4's Corrections Management, and this relates to the Division of Corrections. It's permissive. The new language is permissive section, and it authorizes the Division of Corrections to establish a mandatory supervised release program for people coming out of prison. Everyone knows that some people with prison sentences get parole before they finish them. There are people, believe it or not, we've heard, who refuse parole because they don't want to be supervised by anybody when they come out, when their sentences expire, or when they've actually killed their entire sentence. So this bill will allow the commissioner to develop a mandatory supervised release plan for an inmate serving a sentence who has not been granted discretionary parole, but 180 days prior to the inmate's expiration of sentence, which may include electronic monitoring. The inmate may be released subject to a period of mandatory supervision when he or she is within 120 days of the expiration of his entire sentence. And it may be returned to the correctional facility if he or she violates the conditions of supervision and would not be again eligible for that. Is considered to be released upon parole. That's part of the bill, and it makes clear that the mandatory supervised release is not deemed to be a commutation of a sentence. And it concludes upon the expiration of the final sentence. Be happy to try to answer any questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 636, authorizing legislative rules for Higher Education Policy Commission. Third reading of the bill.
Question for the Senate is shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The Senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a rules bundle authorizing the rules of the Higher Education Policy Commission and Council for Community and Technical College Education. These actually came about from the governor's directive to eliminate unnecessary rules. I'll just briefly go through them, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Series 15 authorizes the repeal of both rules. One is being merged with another, and the other one is being replaced. Series 5 makes changes to be consistent with House Bill 2815, which passed in 2017. Series 7 makes changes to be consistent with Senate Bill 319, passed during the 2018 regular session. Series 32 aligns the rule with House Bill 2815, again passed in 2017. Series 15 authorizes repeal of both rules. Series 20 It relates to business, occupational, and trade schools. It's been revised, and they just were clarifying some of those changes. Series 27 streamlines grant administration for all 3 projects of the Workforce Development Program. And that's it, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Is there further discussion? Excuse me. Is there further discussion? Not. Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Senator from Wetzel County. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage. On question unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none on this question. There being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2607 relating to the licensure of nursing homes. Third reading of the bill.
Question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2607 is a bill that corrects language. It's actually a bill that relates to nursing home licensure, and within the bill, in addition to correcting language throughout the bill, it also provides that additional rules be promulgated that pertain to licensure, record keeping, and inspection processes. It also clarifies the appeal process. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 2666, supplemental appropriation to the Department of Veterans Assistance. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Veterans Assistance. The total appropriation in this bill is $6.2 million. $6 million of these funds will go to the state's Veterans Nursing Facility, because through a series of internal audits, a number of accounting errors were discovered, resulting in over $5 million in unpaid invoices for the hospital. These invoices were paid, but as a result, the hospital's operating funds were significantly decreased. This supplemental would restore the funds that were used to correct the errors and that were discovered through the audit. The other $200,000 will be used to purchase vans used to transport disabled veterans to and from the medical appointments. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion? Not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain results. On this question made 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill be made effective from passage. On question unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage, or when question unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 2668, Supplemental Appropriation to the Department of Administration, Public Defender Services. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a public defender supplemental that we see every year, simply because it's uncertain how much funds will be necessary for this defense of the indigents. The supplemental would appropriate $15.3 million from the general revenue to the Department of Administration, Public Defender Services. These funds will cover the constitutionally mandated indigent defense, as well as help reduce costly interest payments from unpaid vouchers submitted to the Public Defender's Office. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Is there further discussion?
I'll get you after we vote.
Is there further discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote the senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a ruling of the chair under Rule 43 of the Rules of the Senate. It's been a long time since I was appointed to handle an indigent criminal case, but there may be, and I believe are, attorneys in my firm who take those appointments. So I ask for ruling of the chair on whether or not I should be excused from voting.
To the senator of Morgan, to the senator from Morgan, in response to your inquiry, as I understand your situation, you are a member of a class and therefore will be required to vote. Others? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Are there further bills on third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 340, repealing obsolete provisions of code relating to West Virginia Physicians Mutual Insurance Company. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 402, authorizing Division of Forestry investigate and enforce timber theft violations. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 510, relating to medical professional liability. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Trump moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment is a strike and insert, but it really is, I'm sorry, I ask unanimous consent.
The senator from Morgan County requests unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read, and that the senator may proceed. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment is a strike and insert amendment, but it really simply makes two technical amendments in two places. In Section 6 of the bill, in subsection B3, there is a reference to subdivisions B1, B2, and B3, and it should say simply subdivisions 1, 2, and 3 of this subsection. And then further in that section there were further subdivisions or paragraphs that were numbered 1 through E, and because it's in a numbered subdivision, we've changed it to lettering. So instead of 1 through 4, it's now A, B, C, D, E. I urge adoption of the technical amendment.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the committee amendment as explained by the senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 635, relating generally to coal mining activities. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments? Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day. No, I'm sorry. I request unanimous consent that the bill move to third with the right to amend.
The junior senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that the Senate Bill number 635 be moved to third reading with the right to amend. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2083, providing an identification card for released inmates who do not have a West Virginia identification card or driver's license.
Junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 2083 be moved to the Committee on Rules.
Junior senator from the 17th moves that House Bill 2083 be referred to the Committee on Rules. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the motion adopted.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2324, authorizing the Acupuncture Board to issue certificates to perform auricular acudetox therapy. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Government Organization moved to amend the bill.
Senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read, and all amendments be considered as one.
Senator from Nicholas requests unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. In addition to several technical changes, the proposed amendment makes 3 substantive changes to the House Bill 2324. It eliminates chiropractors and physical therapists from the list of professionals who may qualify to receive a certificate as an auricular detoxification specialist, and adds a proviso to the section prohibiting needling beyond the points involved in auricular detoxification that will allow certificate holders to practice within their scope of practice. Mr. President, I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? Not. Question for the Senate is adoption of the committee amendment as explained by the Senator from Nicholas. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be advanced. Bill's on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 613, requiring DNR include election of organ donation on hunting licenses. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Remarks, introduction of guests. Remarks by members of the Senate. The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief today, but I want to pick up where I left off last week on the potholes. And when I called on all 55 county superintendents to be called down here and allow the legislature to be able to ask them questions. But one of the things I got to talking about was the roads to prosperity, if everybody remembers me talking about that. And I was talking about how we'd only let, I believed at the time, only one bond. And that's $1.6 billion is what we'd let, what the 4 bonds would be let out in total for the roads to prosperity, but only one of them's been let so far for $800 million. But when we did the Senate Bill 1002, back in 2017, we actually did some tax increases that all stayed within the Department of Transportation. What that has increased, we've raised extra revenue, $39 million in the motor fuel excise tax, $44 million in registration fees, and $52 million in DMV fees. That's the total, so that's a total increase of $135 million. Now, we have debt service on the first $800 million bond let that's been out there, and it's 10 payments a year, but it's a total of $55 million. So it's real easy math to take the 135 of your revenues that are coming in that were additional and subtract off what the debt service is for the one bond. Comes to being $80 million of additional revenue, and I'll call it what it really is, pay as you go. And I think I've got to give credit. When we set this up so that there's 4 different bond lets, on this so that it didn't overwhelm the system all at one time, but it also made it so that we had some resources in the Department of Transportation, Department of Highways, to be able to go out and take care of issues like potholes. I want to go just a little bit further. I wanted everybody to hear the math on that. I figured it was incumbent upon me. I brought it up to be able to get these numbers out here, making awareness that it's not a money issue. We don't have to be going out here and looking for resources to be able to fix these potholes right now. The money is available. Another thing that needs to be done, though, is that we ought to be geotagging every pothole in the state. We can, each and every one of us can do it on our phone right now. The Department of Highways can do it. School bus drivers, law enforcement, all state employees. We got DHHR people that are traveling throughout the state. We all know how many people that we've got traveling all the roads that are out here, so that we know exactly where the potholes are at. That way we're not paying the Department of Highways to go around looking for them. They ought to be coming into a database, saving us money. That way we can actually get the potholes and the slips fixed, no matter where they are in the state. And I did one last little piece of math. If one pothole costs $500 to fix, which I don't know about anybody else, but I think that that's an extreme amount for one pothole, but let's just say that that's the average on it. That's 160,000 potholes that could get fixed in the state of West Virginia off of these numbers that I just gave to us. Now I'm going to resume my call for the governor's office because it's incumbent upon them. He had no problems about getting in here yesterday, Mr. President. So let him show up and address this issue. Get the 55 county superintendents here and anybody else so that we can ask the questions, so that we can get to the core root of this problem. And we put a system in place that's both efficient and responsive and effective. The time has come, and it's not about the money. I don't want to hear that. This is about management. And it needs to be managed. So you're going to hear from me again very soon. I want somebody to come up and give me an answer on when all 55 of them are going to be here, so that we, all of us, can take this on and understand what's happening, on why it's not being done. And my closing statement on this will also be, there is such a thing as cold patch. So it was said last time I spoke that it's wintertime, it's too cold. It can be done, and it must be done now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks? The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will echo the remarks of the senior senator from the 15th. Our infrastructure, roads, health care, education, all are very important and needs to have our utmost concern. On a lighter note, today is Tourism Day, and I think West Virginia has such a great opportunity for making it probably, in my opinion, our #1 industry to attract people from the West Coast and all over North America and the world to our state. We're blessed with virtually the same terrain from corner to corner. We're so close to a lot of the population of the United States, and I try to do all I can to help tourism in the state, and I urge all of you to do that too. I just wanted to make everybody known that today is Tourism Day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Those are further remarks. The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, when we sign up for this job, we know what we're signing up for. We know that it's going to take some courage and some backbone to stand up for what you think is right. And I applaud those efforts for whatever that position is, that when somebody comes up here and they want to do the right thing and they stick to that commitment. Some of the people that are doing that now, it's not what they really signed up for. I asked, I spoke yesterday about Putnam County. They're the one school system right now that remains open. And so I spoke yesterday about what was told to me, and I asked for some numbers. If you could send me some numbers, actually, what's happening that kind of tells a story about what's happening in the one school we have staying open right now. So yesterday, the numbers that I got, Putnam County had 19 cooks show up for work. They had 12 custodians show up for work. They had 27 aides. They had 15 secretaries, 82 teachers, 77 people classified as other professionals. Their student attendance was 661 students. I'm sure that many of those that are coming for their 2 hot meals a day, and from what I was told, they actually got bag lunches. Today we have, again, 19 cooks present. We have 14 custodians, so another 2. We have 23 aides. That's down from yesterday's 27. Secretaries. We have 16 secretaries, up from yesterday's. Teacher attendance. Today we have 104 teachers that came to work compared to yesterday's 82. Other professionals. Yesterday's was 77, today's is 70. The student attendance went down from 661 students to 258. The courage it takes for these people who did not sign up for this kind of conflict to come in and do what they think is right is incredible to me. And it's because they are absolutely putting our children first. So I understand when people think that where they're right, and by golly, I'm going to stick to my guns. I got that. I'm that kind of guy too. I wouldn't be standing up here and speaking if I wasn't. We think what we're doing is right. We know that if we don't do something, then nothing changes. But I tell you, there's some people that are seriously caught up in this that I both want to applaud and also pray for, that are shouldn't be having to suffer this. So I hope we do something to actually change and improve the results of West Virginia's education system for generations to come. And I just want to let these people know that they're not forgotten, and let these children know they're not forgotten. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks by members? Further remarks? Senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot during the course of events regarding Senate Resolution 53, I request unanimous consent that the remarks of the senator from Upshur be included in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Miscellaneous business. The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? Senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m., room 451M, and the agenda has been posted.
Senator from Jefferson County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Senate Education Committee will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in room 451M. The agenda will be posted.
Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 3 o'clock p.m. in room 208 West Wing.
Senator from Nicholas County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government Organization will resume its work this afternoon, 15 minutes after the conclusion of Judiciary and Finance.
Senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. in 451M.
Further announcements, Senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development will meet today, 208 West at 2 p.m.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Economic Development will be meeting today at 1:30 in 208 West.
Senator from Wetzel County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, 2:51 a.m.
Senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Pensions will meet today at 2 p.m. in 451 M, and then your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet 10 minutes after GovOrg finishes this evening, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Further announcements, the Senator from Monongalia County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, today in room 230 East on the House side from 12:30 to 1:30, we still have some time, the Legislature will be honoring the Katherine Johnson Fair Pay Act, and you're invited to attend, and lunch will be served.
Further announcements, the Junior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to alert the body to the fact that we do plan on doing a split session tomorrow, just to make sure that we have time to get the Senate bills out.
Further announcements. Not the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.